Eli's heart thudded like a drumbeat that didn't belong to them, the kind that vibrated through the thin walls of their Chicago apartment at 2 a.m. Next door, Jade strummed their guitar, the notes wild, reckless, spilling into the night like a confession no one asked for. By morning, Eli would curse the noise, but tonight, they pressed their ear against the wall, chasing the melody that felt like it was unraveling their carefully ordered life. Eli, 28, non-binary, and a librarian with a penchant for color-coded schedules, wasn't built for chaos. They thrived on quiet mornings, black coffee, and the smell of old books at the Rogers Park Library where they worked. Their life was a spreadsheet, predictable, safe, boring, as Jade had once called it during a chance encounter at the mailbox. Jade, 30, gender fluid, and the lead singer of the indie band Neon Static, was everything Eli wasn't: loud, unapologetic, a walking explosion of glitter and leather. Their band was climbing the charts, their face plastered on local music blogs, and their late-night jam sessions were the bane of Eli's existence. Yet, Eli couldn't stop listening. It started 6 months ago when Jade moved into the apartment next door. Eli remembered the day vividly, boxes spilling vinyl records onto the hallway floor, Jade's laugh echoing as they tripped over a guitar case. "You must be the quiet one," Jade had said, smirking, their eyes glinting with mischief. Eli had mumbled something about work and fled, their cheeks burning. They weren't used to being seen, let alone teased. But Jade had a way of noticing things like the way Eli's hands fidgeted when nervous, or how they'd linger on the porch with a book, pretending not to watch Jade tune their guitar under the streetlight. The tension built slowly, like a song finding its rhythm. Eli would leave passive-aggressive notes about the noise, slipped under Jade's door, "Please keep it down after 10 p.m. Some of us have jobs." Jade would respond with doodles of guitars and winking faces, never changing a thing. One night, Eli, fed up, knocked on Jade's door at midnight. Jade answered, shirtless, a guitar slung across their chest. "You gonna join the band or just complain?" They teased. Eli had stormed off, but not before catching the spark in Jade's eyes, like they were daring Eli to step out of their neatly drawn lines. Eli's life hadn't always been so rigid. Growing up in a small Illinois town, they dreamed of adventure, of being someone bold. But years of family expectations, practical, be normal, had whittled them down to this: a life of routine, safe from judgment. Being non-binary in a world that loved boxes meant Eli had learned to shrink, to blend in. Jade, though, was a walking rebellion against boxes. They wore their identity like a badge, their gender fluidity a fluid dance of masc and femme that left Eli both envious and mesmerized. One evening, Eli sat on their porch, a book open but unread, as Jade's band rehearsed in the courtyard. The music was raw, electric, the kind that made your chest ache. Jade's voice carried over the fence, singing about heartbreak and freedom. Eli caught a lyric, "You call it boring. I call it home." Their breath hitched. Was that about them? No, it couldn't be. Jade didn't know them. Not really. But when the song ended, Jade's eyes met Eli's across the yard, and for a moment, the world was just the two of them, the air thick with something unspoken. The next day, Eli found a note taped to their door: "Come to our gig at Metro tomorrow. I dare you. Jay." Eli stared at it for an hour, their logical brains screaming to stay home, to stick to routine. But something else, a flicker of the person they used to dream of being, whispered, "Go." They didn't know it yet, but that dare would crack their world open, exposing a love they never expected and a truth they'd spent years hiding from. The Metro was a pulsing beast, its walls vibrating with bass and the shouts of a crowd drunk on music and cheap beer. Eli stood at the back, clutching a soda, feeling like an imposter in their plain sweater among the sea of leather and piercings. Jade was on stage, a supernova in ripped jeans and a silver crop top, their voice tearing through the air with a rawness that made Eli's skin prickle. They almost hadn't come. The note had burned a hole in their pocket all day, Jade's messy handwriting a taunt. But curiosity or maybe something deeper had dragged them here, to this sweaty club where neon static was tearing the roof off. Jade's eyes scanned the crowd between verses, and when they landed on Eli, a grin broke across their face, sharp and dangerous. Eli's heart lurched. They wanted to run, to hide, but their feet stayed glued to the floor. After the set, Jade found them near the bar, sweat-soaked and buzzing with adrenaline. "You showed," they said, leaning close enough that Eli could smell their cologne leather and cedar. "Thought you'd chicken out. Librarian." Eli bristled at the nickname, but couldn't look away from Jade's eyes, which held a mix of challenge and warmth. "I'm not that boring," Eli muttered, surprising themselves. Jade laughed, loud and unfiltered, and handed them a beer. "Prove it," they said. The night blurred into a haze of conversation and music. Jade dragged Eli to the merch table, introducing them to the band as "my neighbor who hates my guitar." The drummer, Mia, snorted. "You mean the one you won't shut up about?" Eli's cheeks burned, but Jade just winked and steered them outside for air. Under the neon glow of the Metro's sign, Jade lit a cigarette, the smoke curling between them like a secret. "You ever think about breaking your own rules?" they asked, their voice softer now, almost serious. Eli wanted to say yes, to admit they'd been thinking about it since Jade moved in, but fear clamped their mouth shut. Instead, they asked, "Why'd you invite me?" Jade exhaled, staring at the sky. "Because you're not boring, Eli. You're just stuck. And I like unsticking things." The words hit harder than Eli expected, cracking the wall they'd built around themselves. They stood there, the city humming around them, and for the first time in years, Eli felt seen not as the quiet librarian, but as someone who could be more. Back at the apartment, Jade lingered in the hallway, guitar case slung over their shoulder. "You didn't hate it, did you?" they asked, almost shy. Eli shook their head, words failing them. Jade smiled, then leaned in, their lips brushing Eli's cheek before they pulled back. "Night, librarian," they whispered, disappearing into their apartment. Eli stood frozen, their skin tingling where Jade's lips had been, their mind a riot of questions they weren't ready to answer. The next week was torture. Jade's music was louder, their presence bolder. They'd wave at Eli from the courtyard, toss casual invites to gigs or coffee, each one chipping away at Eli's resolve. At work, Eli shelved books mechanically, their thoughts drifting to Jade's voice, their laugh, the way they'd called Eli stuck. It stung because it was true. They'd spent years building a life that kept them safe, but safe was starting to feel like a cage. One night, Eli heard a new song through the wall, softer than usual, almost tender. The lyrics were faint but unmistakable. "You hide in lines, but I see the spark." Eli's breath caught. They grabbed a pen, scrawled a note "What's that song about?" and slid it under Jade's door. Minutes later, Jade knocked. "You want to know?" they asked, eyes glinting. "Come find out." Jade's apartment was a chaotic shrine to music, and rebellion posters of Bowie and Joan Jett plastered the walls, records stacked haphazardly, and a couch buried under lyric-scrawled notebooks. Eli stood in the doorway, clutching their nerve like a lifeline, as Jade gestured them inside with a grin. "Welcome to the chaos, librarian," they said, tossing their guitar onto the couch. The song still lingered in Eli's mind, its lyrics a puzzle they couldn't solve. "So," Eli asked, voice unsteady, "the song, what's it about?" Jade's grin faded, replaced by something softer, almost vulnerable. They picked up their guitar, strummed a few chords, and started singing, "You hide in lines, but I see the spark slash you're a quiet storm, lighting up the dark." Eli's chest tightened. The words felt like a mirror, reflecting parts of themselves they'd buried. "It's about you," Jade said, setting the guitar down. "You act like you're ordinary, but you're not. You've got this fire, Eli. You just don't let it out." Eli wanted to argue, to say Jade was wrong, but the truth in Jade's eyes pinned them in place. They sat on the couch, the space between them electric. "Why me?" Eli whispered. Jade shrugged, their voice low. "Because you make me want to write better songs." The confession hung in the air, heavy and fragile. Eli's life had been about avoiding risks, but Jade was a risk in human form, bold, unpredictable, and terrifyingly alive. They talked for hours, about music, about growing up different, about the weight of expectations. Jade shared how they'd left a small Ohio town, where being gender fluid meant being a target, and found freedom in music. Eli admitted they'd once wanted to be a writer, but fear of failure had locked those dreams away. As dawn crept through the window, Jade reached for Eli's hand, their fingers brushing lightly. "You don't have to stay stuck," Jade said. "You could be anything." Eli's throat tightened. They wanted to believe it, but years of self-doubt screamed louder. They pulled their hand away, muttering an excuse about work, and fled back to their apartment. The next few days, Eli avoided Jade. They took the long way to the mailbox, kept their headphones on at home, anything to dodge the pull of Jade's orbit. But the song haunted them, playing on repeat in their mind. At the library, a coworker caught them humming it and laughed. "You're into neon static now. Thought you hated them." Eli flushed, realizing how deeply Jade had infiltrated their world. Then came the open mic night. Jade had left a flyer under Eli's door, neon static at the empty bottle. "Bring your courage." Eli went, not because they planned to, but because their feet carried them there. The club was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Jade took the stage, their eyes finding Eli instantly. "This one's new," they said into the mic, their voice steady. "It's for someone who doesn't know they're a masterpiece." The song was raw, aching, a love letter wrapped in chords. "You're the quiet I can't ignore slash the spark I'm always searching for." Eli's eyes burned with tears. The crowd cheered, but for Eli, it was just them and Jade, the world narrowing to that moment. After the set, Jade found them outside, breathless. "You heard it," they said, not a question. Eli nodded, unable to speak. Jade stepped closer, their voice a whisper. "Stop running, Eli. Let me in." Eli didn't sleep that night. Jade's words, "let me in," echoed like a chorus they couldn't shake. By morning, they were a mess of nerves, pacing their apartment, the walls feeling smaller than ever. They tried to bury themselves in work, shelving books with mechanical precision, but Jade's song clung to them. A patron at the library asked for a music biography, and Eli's hands trembled as they handed over a book about Kurt Cobain, wondering if Jade saw themselves in those pages tortured, brilliant, untamed. Eli's life felt like the opposite, a story written in pencil, easily erased. That evening, Jade knocked on their door. Eli opened it, heart racing, to find Jade holding a vinyl record, Neon Static's first EP. "Thought you might want this," Jade said, their smile hesitant. "It's got the boring song on it." Eli laughed despite themselves, the tension easing. They invited Jade in. A first. And the two sat on Eli's couch, the record spinning on an old turntable. The music filled the room, Jade's voice weaving through Eli's carefully ordered space like it belonged there. They talked about everything and nothing. Jade's first gig, Eli's childhood obsession with poetry. Jade admitted they'd written the song after seeing Eli on the porch, lost in a book, their face lit by the sunset. "You look like you were hiding a whole world," Jade said. Eli's chest ached. No one had ever described them like that. They wanted to lean into Jade, to close the distance, but fear held them back. The next week, Jade invited Eli to a band rehearsal. No pressure, they said, but their eyes said otherwise. Eli went, sitting awkwardly in a corner of the rehearsal space, a converted warehouse in Wicker Park. The band was a family, messy, loud, but tight. Mia, the drummer, tossed Eli a beer, teasing, "You're the muse now, huh?" Eli blushed, but Jade just grinned, strumming a riff that felt like it was written for Eli's heartbeat. After rehearsal, Jade and Eli walked home through the city, the streets alive with summer heat. Jade stopped at a park, pulling Eli onto a bench. "You ever feel like you're waiting for permission to live?" they asked. Eli nodded, the question cutting too close. "All the time," they admitted. Jade's hand found theirs, warm and steady. "You don't need it, Eli. You're enough." The words broke something in Eli. They kissed Jade, tentative at first, then desperate, like they'd been starving for this. Jade kissed back, fierce and gentle, their hands tangling in Eli's hair. The world spun, and for once, Eli didn't care about control. But when they pulled back, doubt crept in. "What if I'm not ready?" Eli whispered. Jade's smile was soft. "Then we go slow." "I'm not going anywhere." But slow wasn't Jade's style. The next day, Neon Static got a Callum major label wanted to sign them. Jade was ecstatic, but Eli felt a knot in their stomach. Fame would pull Jade away, into a world Eli didn't fit in. They smiled through Jade's excitement, but inside, they were already bracing for the fall. The news of Neon Static's deal spread like wildfire. Local blogs buzzed, and Jade's apartment became a revolving door of bandmates, managers, and fans. Eli watched from their porch, feeling like an outsider in a story they'd just started to believe in. Jade was different now, busier, brighter. Their energy is supernova. They'd text Eli at odd hours, "Miss you. Librarian. Come to the studio." Eli went once, sitting in a sleek recording booth, watching Jade pour their soul into a microphone. The song was new, raw, about chasing dreams and losing home. Eli wondered if they were the home Jade was singing about, or if they were just a footnote in Jade's rise. One night, Jade showed up at Eli's door, eyes tired but alive. "We're going on tour," they said, voice cracking with excitement. 6 months. Cross country. Maybe Europe. Eli's smile faltered, but they nodded, murmuring congratulations. Jade frowned, stepping closer. "You okay?" Eli lied, saying they were fine, but the truth was a weight they couldn't name. The next weeks were a blur of stolen moments. Jade would sneak away from rehearsals to sit with Eli on the porch, sharing cheap wine and stories. Eli opened up about their family, how coming out as non-binary had meant losing half their world. Jade listened, their hands steady on Eli's, and shared their own scars being kicked out at 17, finding solace in music. "We're survivors," Jade said, "and survivors deserve to love." Eli wanted to believe it, but doubt was a loud roommate. They saw Jade's life expanding, interviews, photo shoots, fans chanting their name while Eli stayed small. At a Neon Static gig, a fan cornered Eli, asking if they were Jade's groupie. The word stung, a reminder of how out of place they felt. Jade overheard, pulling Eli backstage. "You're not a groupie," they said fiercely. "You're the reason I'm writing again." But the tour loomed. The night before Jade left, they cooked dinner in Eli's tiny kitchen, burning the pasta but laughing through it. After, they lay on Eli's couch, tangled together, Jade's fingers tracing patterns on Eli's arm. "Come with me," Jade whispered. Eli froze. The idea was wild. Impossible. They had a job, a life, a safety net. "I can't," Eli said, their voice breaking. Jade nodded, but their eyes were heavy with hurt. The morning Jade left, Eli stood in the hallway, watching the band's van pull away. Jade waved, their smile forced. Eli waved back, then shut their door, the silence deafening. They tried to return to routine work. Books, coffee, but everything felt hollow. Jade's texts came less often, their voice muffled by distance and static. Eli listened to Neon Static's new single on repeat, the one about the spark in the dark, and wondered if they'd lost their chance to shine. Then, a package arrived, a demo CD with a note, "For Eli, my muse. Don't forget me." Eli played it, tears falling as Jade's voice filled the room, singing about a love that refused to fade. Eli's apartment became a museum of absence. The walls, once alive with Jade's music, were silent. Eli filled the void with work, taking extra shifts at the library, but the quiet was a weight, pressing against their chest. Jade's tour updates came in bursts, photos from Austin, Seattle, New York, their grin wide but tired. Eli replied with short, safe messages, "Looks fun. Stay safe." They didn't know how to say they missed Jade's chaos, their late-night knocks, the way they'd made Eli feel alive. Instead, they scrolled through Neon Static's social media, watching Jade become a star. One night, Eli found a video of Jade's interview on a music podcast. The host asked about the new single, "Quiet Storm." Jade's smile softened. "It's about someone who changed me," they said. "Someone who thinks they're ordinary but is anything but." Eli's heart raced. They replayed it, searching Jade's face for clues, wondering if they were still the spark. At the library, Eli started writing again, something they hadn't done since college. Short poems at first, scribbled on sticky notes, then longer pieces about love and fear. They didn't show anyone, but the words felt like reclaiming a piece of themselves. One poem, about a star too bright to hold, made them cry. They mailed it to Jade. No explanation, just a note, "I'm trying." Jade's reply came a week later. A postcard from Denver, "Your words are fire. Keep going." Eli stared at it, something shifting inside them. They started leaving their apartment more, going to open mic nights, reading their poetry to strangers. Each word was a step out of their cage, a nod to the person Jade saw in them. But distance was cruel. Jade's texts grew sporadic. Their tour extended. Eli saw photos of Jade with other musicians, laughing, close. Jealousy gnawed at them, followed by guilt. Jade wasn't theirs to claim. Not really. They pushed Jade away, scared of losing control. Now, control was all they had, and it felt like nothing. One night, Eli went to a Neon Static show in Chicago, their first since the tour began. The crowd was bigger, wilder, Jade's presence magnetic. They sang "Quiet Storm," and Eli swore Jade's eyes found them, holding their gaze through the final chorus. After, Jade pulled them backstage, their hug warm and desperate. "You came," Jade whispered. Eli nodded. "Word stuck." "I read your poem," Jade said. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. They spent the night walking the city, talking until dawn. Jade admitted the tour was exhausting, the pressure of fame suffocating. Eli confessed their fear of being left behind. I don't want to lose you, Eli said, voice raw. Jade took their hand. You won't. This, they gestured between them. It's real. But real was complicated. Jade had to leave again, the tour pulling them west. Eli watched them go, promising to write, to wait. They didn't know if they could, but for the first time, they wanted to try. Eli threw themselves into their writing, filling notebooks with poems that bled with longing and hope. The library became their sanctuary, the hum of pages and whispers a backdrop to their thoughts of Jade. They sent Jade fragments of their work, each one a piece of their heart mailed across the country. Jade's replies were Treasurisa voice memo of a new riff, a photo of a sunset with "Wish you were here" scrawled across it. But the gaps between messages grew, and Eli's doubts crept back. They saw Jade's face on billboards, heard their voice on the radio. Neon static was everywhere, and Eli felt smaller with each headline. One evening, Eli's phone lit up with a call from Jade. We're playing Lollapalooza, Jade said, voice electric. Chicago, next month. You have to be there. Eli agreed, their heart a tangle of excitement and fear. They spent the weeks leading up to it preparing, not just for the show, but for what they needed to say. They wrote a letter to Jade, pouring out everything: their fear, their love, their hope for a future they couldn't yet see. Lollapalooza was a sea of sound and color, thousands packed into Grant Park. Eli stood near the stage, clutching their letter, as neon static took over. Jade was a force, their voice carrying over the crowd, their energy pulling everyone in. When they sang Quiet Storm, the lyrics hit harder than ever. You're the home I'll always find. Eli's eyes filled with tears, the letter heavy in their pocket. After the set, Eli found Jade backstage, surrounded by fans and cameras. Jade broke away, pulling Eli into a corner. You're here, they said, breathless, their hands cupping Eli's face. Eli handed them the letter, their voice shaking. Read it later. Please. Jade nodded, tucking it into their jacket, then kissed Eli, quick and fierce, before being pulled back to the chaos. Eli went home, heart pounding, wondering if they'd said enough. That night, Jade called, their voice thick with emotion. Your letter, Eli. I didn't know you felt like that. They talked for hours, Jade confessing the loneliness of the road, Eli admitting they'd been scared to love something they might lose. I'm coming back, Jade said. For you. The tour ended, and Jade returned to Chicago. They showed up at Eli's door. No guitar, no bravado, just them raw, real. I wrote a new song, Jade said, pulling Eli close. It's about us. About staying. Eli's walls crumbled. They kissed Jade, not tentative this time, but sure, like they were claiming their place in the story. Jade stayed. Not just in Chicago, but in Eli's life, their presence a melody that didn't fade. They moved into a shared apartment, a compromise between Eli's order and Jade's chaos. The walls were lined with books and records, a testament to their worlds colliding. Neon Static's fame grew, but Jade carved out time for Eli, for quiet nights on the porch, for mornings when they'd read Eli's poems and hum new melodies. Eli kept writing, their words finding a small but loyal audience at open mic nights. They were still the librarian, still non-binary, still themselves, but they were no longer stuck. Jade had shown them how to step into their own light. One night, Jade played a new song at a small venue, just them and their guitar. It was called The Spark Next Door, and every word was for Eli, You were the quiet I learned to love/the home I never knew I'd have. The crowd cheered. But Eli only saw Jade. Their eyes locked on theirs. A promise in every note. Eli's family reached out. Tentative. Curious about the person who'd changed them. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Jade's band became their family too. Mia teasing Eli as the poet who tamed our star. Eli laughed, no longer shrinking from the spotlight. Years later, at a Neon Static concert, Jade dedicated the set to Eli. This is for the person who taught me love is louder than fame, they said, their voice carrying over the crowd. Eli stood in the wings, their heart full. They'd found their spark, not just in Jade, but in themselves. The song ended, and Jade pulled Eli on stage, the crowd roaring. Eli froze, then laughed, letting Jade's hand anchor them. They didn't need to be a rock star. They just needed to be Eli loved, whole, and finally free.